two,
I have.
one. Love! What is it good for? Absolutely everything. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Thursdays with Moire. For our 110th episode, we're going to celebrate not just Valentine's Day, but Black History Month as well, all bundled up in one great episode that I'm very excited for, otherwise called The History of Love, where we talk about uh, very romantic, very lovely movies shown through the eyes of Black cinema. I'm your
Well, 2 out
host.
of 3 anyway.
Oh, that's
We'll we'll
we'll
we'll
get
get
there.
into that later.
Yeah, we'll get there. I'm your host, Dean Taylor. Joining me tonight is my wonderful co-host, Devin King. Daryl
Hey,
Ailes will be subbing in with his thoughts later, likely on if Beale Street could talk. And how are you doing tonight, Devin? Let's start off with that. How's your evening going?
we're doing just fi I'm doing just fine, kinda scrambling things together last minute as usual. Shout out to Bernard who couldn't make it tonight. He's, busy, w with work, but he, always loves to be a part of these episodes, last I checked anyway. Um, but, yeah, we're just taking things a little easier on ourselves this year instead of doing, an episode every goddamn week, which made sense during the pandemic. We're spacing them out. But, in this case, it means we're kinda pushing together kinda themes to make up for it. Because like, last year, we did a Valentine's episode and a Black History episode. I still really like the movies that we discussed last year, especially Uptight. Um, thought that was that was an excellent film. But, this case, we're kinda putting Black History Month and Valentine's just to check off that box.
Two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
Before we
Uh,
start the sorry, go on. You first, buddy.
Go ahead. I was gonna say a disclaimer, neither of us are black, not that that means anything, but
In case you haven't noticed. Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
just we're just disembodied voices in a void, which I guess a void would be the absence of light, so I guess in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Everybody's dark in that sense. Don't take that out of context, Internet, please. Don't want to be
yeah.
accused of blackface. Anyways, let's
Vo void face, there is no
void
face.
face. Yeah, there you go. There's no voice.
We're
There's
we're
no
we're we're off
face.
to we're off to a great start here, as usual, just off with the irreverent dark humor. Um,
Let's go back a little bit and like I kind of like to devote this episode to something I can personally connect with. I
shoot.
like this episode to shout out to everybody I've fallen in love with in the past. Like I've my ex girlfriends, um, anybody else that like I may have shared a connection to. This is my way of reaching out to you, and hopefully, it could be everybody's way of connecting with others. And it's just two nerds talking about a podcast, and it's two nerds, one of which, most likely me, is going to have shitty opinions and all that. But I formed this podcast so for you guys to get everybody together, everybody talking, and to just sort things through this mess. So if you're
Yeah.
listening to this, this episode goes to you, no matter where you are, what you're going through right now. Like you're awesome people for even listening to this podcast and giving me the chance to talk. I
All
couldn't be
all all
prouder.
t all 10 of you listening right now, we love you guys. Thanks for, being a part of us,
Even if
and,
it's just one person, you're awesome, man. Don't forget it.
oh, yeah. And that's all this episode is, it's about love, no matter
Exactly.
what form it comes in.
And the history
Um,
of it.
yeah,
I did the thing.
goddamn puns.
Yeah, I did the thing.
Yeah,
So this episode, I'm gonna be honest. This episode came because my friend Daryl was trying to get me to see if Beale Street could talk forever, and eventually I was just like, you know what? Fine, I got the Blu-ray. Let's just watch it. Let's recommend it. Oh, Valentine's Day is coming up. Great. Black History Month, even better. Let's make that the central focus. So I will say that off the bat that was the central focus. The inspection that came from an interview I watched with a actors roundtable. It was around Oscar season, so a lot of actors that were getting that kind of attention were getting together. But the lead actor Jeremy Pope had this beautiful story. I'm gonna get more into it when we introduce that film about like the true, basically the semi autobiographical nature behind the film, and the fact that it is at least loosely based on a true story behind the director and writer behind it. And that got me so invested that I actually wanted to seek out the film. and we talked about that as well. Love and Basketball, on the other hand, spoiler alert for Love and Basketball and all of the films tonight. Love and Basketball was a film you and Bernard recommended, and I heard the film first. I'm like, Love and Basketball. I never even heard of this movie. And
Oh
then I
yeah.
look it up, and it
It,
has all these big actors in it. The director did The Old Guard and The Woman King. I'm just like, huh. Okay, I've never. There's a Criterion. How
yeah.
have I never heard of this
Well,
movie?
initially you were gonna recommend Moonlight, and that was gonna have like two Barry Jenkins films in one episode, and they're pretty similar in theme. And when I was talking to Bernard about brainstorming this episode, he thought that we should have something else in there just to break it up a little bit, or at least create more of a wide span. Um, which I think always makes for better episodes when there's more variety in theme. Then I think it helps a lot. And I can't remember if I looked it up and or if he suggested it, but he said that he loves this film. It is a certified hood classic.
Please tell me
um,
those are his words.
those weren't his words, but that's pretty much what everyone says about it. It's a film that for people in that community, is an absolute classic. And actually, I saw an interview with the director. This is her first film, Gina Prince by the Wood, which is a great name, by the way. Um, but this was her debut film, and she basically, um, to put it bluntly, she basically wanted to make it black when Harry met Sally.
That makes sense. There's a lot of
Yeah.
like narrative similarities. I thought, like,
But
yeah,
there were autobiographical elements that kind of snuck their way into it. It's not exactly based off her life, but there's a lot of elements of her life that were put into the film.
hmm.
Um,
I think that's
it,
another common theme with all of the movies tonight, with the inspection, and even if Bill Street could top, which is based off a book, which that book was heavily
I
inspired by actual events that writer went through himself.
and I didn't realize that was written by James Baldwin, who's
Mhm.
I've seen like interview clips of it. I haven't read any like books of his directly, but I've seen lots of interviews and quotes of his, and I found he's just a very prolific and incredible writer that
Fascinating character for sure.
such a loss when he passed away, but he's a fascinating person. So it was really cool to see a film based off his work.
It definitely kind of feels like a love letter to his work. But again, we're getting off topic. It's time for some sexy basketball for Love and Basketball. What's it about? Well, it's about two people that were childhood friends. Both are incredibly passionate about basketball, but have two different ways of approaching it. The man in the relationship, apologize in advance, I forget some of the actors' names. I'm terrible with names to begin with, so I'm just gonna IMDb super duper quick. I was totally prepared for this episode.
Oh
Quincy
yeah,
McCall, played by Omar Epps, was childhood friends with uh, Monica, who was played by different actresses throughout. They're both played by different actors as they kind of grow out. They start off as childhood friends, but they have two very different approaches to trying to get into basketball. The man has a clear advantage. His dad's basically part of the NBA. He has like a, he's he basically has an in and already has the celebrity status, whereas not only does the girl in the relationship have to struggle as a woman in the NBA, but she also just doesn't have any, like, her families are just very basic, very out of the sports world, so she has to work to where she gets at. And it's kind of like an interesting dynamic between like how hard either side has to work to not only be in the NBA but to be in a relationship in general. I think that's definitely when the film's at its best. And yeah, and it goes on for like a long period of time. Like, we see them get together, break up again, go become champions, kind of lose their championships in different ways, and eventually get together yet again at the very end of the story. And it's a lot to chew and a lot to unpack. I wasn't expecting this film to be so long. That's what really caught me off guard. Like, I was halfway through and I'm just like, how long is this movie? Like, it feels like it's about to wrap up. And then I saw I had another hour left. I'm like, that's wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
they really packed a lot into this, and I remember I was doing research and I found on YouTube there was 8 minutes of deleted scenes, um,
yeah, I saw that.
from the from the Criterion version of the film, which this is on the Criterion collection, and I think it deserves to be for the place that it has in history. That there weren't a lot of films like this that really got into that, culture and told like a love story, for that
Absolutely.
perspective. Although I have seen a lot of criticism come out, for it since, saying that the relationship is actually toxic. I wouldn't, use that word for it necessarily. It is definitely more complicated, though. Omar Epps isn't the most likable, protagonist. I did like him in House, and I did recognize him, retroactively. Like, oh, that's the guy that was in House, but this is him younger, playing a teenager while he's 27. Um, which is,
Welcome
that.
to Hollywood movies.
I mean, I liked how they first like met and started out. It was like, she came up to play with the boys like for basketball. Well, kind of, she wasn't exactly dressed like one, but they weren't sure, of her at first, and he kind of got rough with her, which, ee, yeah, that brought some childhood memories up I wanted to forget, but, um,
Yeah,
yeah.
it, it does
But
for the
it,
characters too.
it
Yeah.
but she was very like resilient, and they kind of had an interesting little cute romance then. But as things kind of developed, he moved on to other people, um, and I think she did as well, or at least she was more focused on her like getting into basketball, being serious about it. Really interesting. I love the intricacies of like the family dramas and the
Mm.
two different households that they come from and
It's
have.
very entertaining. Yeah, that's
I
for sure.
really like how it shows how that dynamic, changes over the years. Um,
Yes.
and it was interesting how, they ended up together after all that. Major spoiler, but it did make me wonder how different would the story be if they actually did end up together? Like if they actually ended up with different people for different reasons. I mean, there were so many moments that they kind of had split apart, and he, gets together with other girls in front of her,
Mhm.
and it seems kind of low key manipulative the way he was going about that.
Yeah, I
So,
know. It kind of goes both ways. Like it's, she doesn't make enough time for him. He kind of manipulates her. Like I could see on like a basic level how somebody could view the relationship as toxic. Like, yeah, these two
mhm.
clearly
it's
aren't
it's more
meant to be
it's
together.
definitely
Yeah,
more complicated than that, right?
that's what it's going for sure. And
Hmm.
in some ways it succeeds, other ways it really doesn't. But overall, I'd say I liked it. I thought it was enjoyable. But I think my biggest problem is that I have to admit, for like the first 25 or 30 minutes, I really wasn't digging it. Like the child performances are very clearly written by 50-year-olds. The dynamics
it's
were like a little too
she,
predictable,
she was
especially
not
kind of
50 when she wrote the thing.
oh, but okay,
She was in her 20s, I'm pretty sure,
that's fair.
when she
I'm just saying it felt like
when
it
she
was
made that.
written. Like the
No,
adults and the
I
teenagers
actually no, I
talk the same
agree.
as
I
the
think
kids. Yeah.
the stuff with the kids actually felt pretty authentic. Like that was some of the more realistic, stuff for me. I
Really?
mean, yeah, just I
Huh.
mean that's just my personal opinion, but this is a film that's so beloved by, people that this is about. Um and and any kind of criticism is not taken, very. It's like people either absolutely love it or they really, outwardly speak against it. I'm somewhere in the middle. I think it's a very, sweet little film. Um and I can see the sentimental value that it has, and I do think it's great for that. It's not one that I would like seek out usually otherwise, but I thought, yeah, it's a very nice, sweet kind of film.
Yeah. It's a very nice movie. It's like a very cute
Oh
movie.
yeah, I
And
liked
yeah.
how tender yet intense their chemistry was throughout the whole
Oh
thing, and
man, that.
there was a
Whew.
lot of back and forth and a lot of kind of mixed signals, and
Yeah,
such. But
yeah. I mean, I didn't. I thought after watching Catwoman, I wouldn't have to see another scene of sexy basketball, but here we are. I mean, it
no,
does sexy basketball way better. I will admit
it's
that.
way better. Yeah, for sure,
Yeah,
way better
because
than
the
the other
actors have actual
Catwoman.
chemistry and they aren't basketball fucking in front of kids, so that makes a slight difference. Oh,
Yeah,
Catwoman. Yeah, but like as the story was going along, it was kind of winning me over more and more. Like I think
yeah.
it's really clever, like how they split the story into quarters instead of like different acts or stories. Like that was like a cute little way of like tying in basketball
Well,
with like the
I
stages
like
of the
that. I like that
relationship.
it
Yeah.
that the structure resembled like a basketball game, and their
Mhm.
relationship is kind of like a basketball game in a sense. Um,
Yeah,
just
and
an
like most
interesting
basketball
correlation for them
games,
to draw.
I'm only really into it for the last two quarters. Because like towards the end, like it was winning me over. Like it, even when it had like issues and dumb moments, by the end of it, it was just like, you know what, like that's fine. Like I can live with that. Like I'm engaged enough in their chemistry. And I think the fourth quarter in particular, I heard my mom said like that quarter was really boring, but I think that was the best part, just seeing like how they grow apart and try to like how they're you
Mhm.
know what they're pursuing doesn't bring them any happiness. It's like a little cheesy, but it kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
works, and you really feel it. Like I particularly like the big basketball game that was leading up for the woman, and it kind of just cuts to her winning the trophy, and like I actually thought that was a pretty clever way of showing like the victory doesn't really mean anything. Victory is
Well,
just kind of
I
hollow
like
at
the
that point.
crosscut. I like the crosscut of him failing and her succeeding, and
Hmm.
then
The other way around. Yeah.
he couldn't be happy for her, which really probably stung, like,
Mhm.
you know, and it's just, those kind of, just them trying to be on the same, like, level, but they're not quite with each other, and just how, yeah, they just rub each other the wrong way sometimes. But
Hmm.
I like the parallels that they draw between the two, because they're both, you know, trying to further their basketball careers, even though they're like in high school for the most part. But just trying to figure out life at the same time. And I like that she's from more of like a middle class, or kind of, yeah, like middle class home, and he's more more well off because his dad's like a big player, in more ways than one. Which was
Indeed. Yeah.
that was quite a scene toward the third, or I guess it was the third quarter, where his dad got caught up in a scandal, or an affair, and he lied right to his face about it,
Yeah,
and
that was
man, that really stung.
yeah, it's again like a lot of emotional beats. Like I feel like no man if that was kind of silly, and I don't know if it's a cliche or just a dated thing. Like the fact that she like hired a private investigator and handed over photographs is like that felt a little like tropey and Hollywoody. I don't
I
know. Like I
mean,
feel like it would have been more compelling if maybe she caught them or like saw them in the act somehow. Like I feel like that would have been like way more effective than like I feel like the private investigator element was a bit silly, but again, I don't know if that was just maybe a
mhm.
thing at the time because technology wasn't easily accessible and it was harder to sneak up on people. So like maybe that's just like a time period thing, but it just felt kind of took away the sting a little bit. It's like okay, like this just feels like a
I mean,
pulpy noir
it didn't
detective
really
movie
stick
now.
out to me. It's like a narrative. It's just a narrative device, really, to have like photographs. But it does show that it's like his dad tells him that he wasn't caught up at a fair, which I think you can tell that he was lying. He says, because he was offended that he asked him, and then he looks him in the eyes, hands on his shoulder, and he says, "If you need me to hear it, I'll tell you. It's not true." But if you have to use all that preamble to say so, then something's up.
Yeah, like I feel like there was enough ingredients there that I didn't need the film to over explain it to me. And I feel like there were a few scenes like that where towards the end in particular was like the most egregious example where it's like she's trying to set up like a basketball game and she's trying to like rekindle the romance like with their basketball sex they had like earlier in the movie. And
Well, it's
like
a it's like an ultimatum kind of thing. It's like
oh I get what they were
if
going for, but like I feel like I
mhm.
didn't need her to literally say like we're gonna play for what? Your heart. I was like that. That was a little cheesy and too on the nose. Like I feel like I got what they were going for by just setting up the game. Like you didn't need to go all in. I guess it's kind of like what Bernard said way back with what film was it? The Hate You Give. Like if it just several scenes where it's like they just held back a little bit, said a little bit less, it may have been a little more effective.
True. And it does make me wonder, like, I don't know what the writing process for this film was,
Mhm.
if this was considered, but if I'm wondering, what if they didn't end up together, and what would that mean
Yeah, you
for them?
think you're thinking like a La La Land kind of ending.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I'm wondering if that would have like a more impactful and kind of bittersweet kind of thing,
I
at least at least
yeah,
for me watching. I mean,
I think
people
I
have very
agree. Like it kind of feels
I
like
think
a yeah, go on.
people have pretty, this is a film that's very close to the many people's hearts, so I'm
Hmm.
not gonna impede on anyone's enjoyment. I'm just thinking, what if? Um,
Yeah, there's nothing
it might
wrong with
have.
that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm wondering if it kind of feels like there may have been like an alternate ending where that did happen. You know how like a lot of Hollywood movies have these like darker alternate endings, but then the producers say no because they want it to be a happier ending, or the directors just want it to be a happier ending, like with Get Out. Like I'm wondering
Mhm.
if
Well,
maybe something like that was the case.
I
But
didn't watch through all the deleted scenes that they have. I am curious. And I was watching an interview with her, and she was lucky that she got like the funding for this, and she was pretty much left alone by any studio heads
which is so funny. Yeah,
well, no, it's great. Just she was able to make the film that she wanted, but
sure.
since then, surprisingly, she has not been able to get films of the same budget and not get studio interference with any subsequent films that she's made,
Yeah,
which is unfortunate.
you could
But
definitely
it,
tell in films like The Old Guard where the studio meddling was involved, which is unfortunate.
yeah, but no, Gina really got to make the film that she wanted here, and I do think that it holds up pretty well for the most part. There's
Hmm.
definitely some dated elements, but
The music,
I
yeah.
absolutely, I do think that there's a very sincere heart to this film, and I did resonate with that.
Hmm. Yeah, like it's got a lot of hurt to it. And I can never hold that against the film. And yeah, I can complain about being too long and too messy, and some of the dialogue doesn't work. But in the end, like it is, you can feel the passion behind it. You can feel that everybody cared about it, even if it didn't have the best writing. Like all of the actors bring their A game, and yeah, apparently I was reading that like the actress never played basketball before. And she spent like months like getting into
Mm.
training, getting into shape and learning how to play basketball. Like that's insane devotion
Well,
for like an indie romance movie. And that shows just how much they care.
I mean, she wanted someone that really knew how to play and was an
Mhm.
athlete because you can tell visually if, um, like if they know what they're doing or not. But she had to make the compromise. She was asking herself, is this more of a love story or is it more about basketball? And she decided that it's more of a love story that has to be solid. You can fake kind of like a wide shot of someone, getting the hoop perfectly or performing well with a stand-in, but you can't fake a close-up of their performance. So that was a decision that she had to make early on, that she wants to focus more on the love story. And if they need, someone to stand in to get the hoops perfectly or whatnot, then they can get those after the fact, which is really interesting. Just those insights in the production, and I love all
Mhm.
those the whole thought process behind telling and crafting the stories that you want to make. I actually really loved the opening shot. It was just like this crane maneuver where you kind of
Mhm.
got the shot zooming out from the street and it goes up through the trees. I just love the staging of that.
Yeah, there was some really
It was
good
really
cinematography. I really liked the POV shots when she was like playing basketball early on in high school. Like that was like a really effective way of like showing her anxiety and her
Mhm.
desperate need to focus and try not to give into her angry nature. Like that was like a really clever visual way
uh,
of showing that. I love
oh, and
like shots like that. Yeah.
I have to shout out the soundtrack. It was just
Oh,
banger after banger.
so good.
Like
It's very 90s music, but it's still like so good. Like it's on
it's
par with
like
something like Space Jam if we're talking about
I was
basketball
just about
soundtracks.
I I was about to say this is, like, on the opposite spectrum of Space Jam, but it's 100% that, like, '90s vibe and just feel good R&B music and, ballads. It was just a good time. I mean, Space Jam is kind of on the other end of that, but yeah, it's I
Yeah,
I would put them next to each other. If
yeah,
if you
it
were gonna make a
works. Yeah.
if you were gonna make a playlist of, like, '90s, R&B ballads to put on with the basketball game,
This is the way to do it. Yeah.
and it's you put Love and Basketball, Space Jam, and there's probably some others that you can throw in there, but yeah, 100%.
I will say though, I did like the ballad music more than the actual original soundtrack. Like, I think it's just a symptom of like late '90s, early 2000s Hollywood movies to have like this really schmaltzy, orchestral, like overwrought soundtrack playing in certain scenes. It did kind of take me out a
Mhm.
little bit. Like, it felt a
It
little too
didn't
cheesy.
it never stuck out to me, like, it just felt right in the moment, and I
Yeah.
didn't overanalyze it or critique it,
Oh, I
but,
didn't either,
um,
and it's very much like a product of its time thing. Like, I
yeah,
wouldn't hold it
I
against
I
it.
I will I will say the soundtrack elements definitely, uh, stuck out or were more memorable than the original music, so I'd
Absolutely.
have to go back and listen to it, but, yeah, I thought it was a good time overall.
Yeah, it's kind of like that thing with The Matrix or Space Jam. Like, who's talking about like the composed music for those movies? Like, no, it's like Club to Death or I Believe I Could Fly. It's all the songs of the licensed soundtrack that really brings those movies to life. And it's the same thing here for sure. or Guardians of the Galaxy, even if you want to use like a more contemporary example. Like nobody remembers the orchestral music from those movies, but everybody remembers the first time they heard
And
Hooked on a
get your
Feeling. Yeah,
love.
exactly. Exactly. Like that's what
Yeah.
makes those movies stand out in this one in particular.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Uh yeah, just a very nice, very simple movie. I still feel like it was too long. And I don't really know where I would cut it, but it definitely felt like some of the it very much felt like a director getting their vision done as much as possible. And I feel
Oh
like
yeah.
that was both a good and a bad thing because it is a little
This was.
bloated, but that's
Mhm.
my
But
only real issue.
it was Spike Lee that also helped produce this and fund it, and
I
I think
read.
he did. Oh
That's
yeah,
pretty
I think
cool.
he did a good job with that. Just giving this film money and
Yeah,
letting the
and not writing
and
it.
I really just letting the director kind of take her vision where she wanted. And yeah, it's basically a cult classic for sure, or a
Yeah,
certified hood classic, I should say.
I could
But
definitely see the appeal for sure.
it apparently the budget of it was about 14 to 20 million. It's such a weird wide estimate there, but it made 27 million back, so that's pretty good.
That's pretty good. That's more
Pretty good
expensive than I
bank.
thought it would be, and I don't mean that in an offense in any way, shape, or form. It's just seems like a very simple movie that like maybe for the music, the music probably cost them a lot
Oh yeah,
more.
the,
Let's
the
be
music
honest.
licensing was probably a good chunk of it for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Probably a few million in of itself. And you gotta get all those actors. Like there are some big name actors in this movie. A few of them, like there was, I was literally shouting out, like, "Is that Dennis Haysbert?" when I
Oh
got
yeah.
to saw his father for the first time. So yeah, they
Oh,
probably
I
have
guess
the
you
voice.
mentioned earlier, but I didn't realize she also directed Woman King. I still have to check that
Hmm.
movie out.
Yeah, me too.
She's got a handful of films. There's Love and Basketball, The Secret Life of Bees, Beyond the Lights, Before I Fall, The Old Guard, and Woman King was her latest one. And then she's got one announced or to be announced, The Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat.
That is an amazing name, and I'm gonna see it just for that. I definitely need to
It
check out her older work. Sure.
Yeah, this is the first film of hers that I've seen, and I think it's probably her most well known. Um,
I
but yeah,
imagine.
I enjoyed it. I feel like I feel like I've been initiated more or less.
I feel like I'm welcomed into a group. But yeah, don't watch the old guard. It's
Uh,
awful. But given what you
I'm
said,
not gonna go as
yeah.
far as to say that I'm invited to the cookout. I can't invite myself there.
Oh yeah. Sorry, man.
Uh,
Gotta get good basketball first. Gotta learn how to shoot some hoops.
oh
What
yeah,
would you rate
it, it
this
it
film?
it did remind me when I was a kid and I used to shoot hoops. I did not like do well with it or get far with it, but man, it did bring me back to that time.
Yeah, like growing up in the '90s, basketball was insanely popular. Like everybody was talking
Oh
about it.
yeah.
Everybody was playing it. Everybody was talking about Michael Jordan and Nike shoes, and it's very much like a product of its time for a lot of
I
kids,
remember
including
being in
us. Yeah,
I
grew
remember
up with
being
it.
in public school and we had a special presentation of these midget basketballers that showed up and they were showing how just as capable as they are as someone, much taller than them. Um,
Yeah,
that was that was a weird, interesting demonstration, but that was my experience with basketball.
yeah. I we actually had the same people. No word for lie. We
Really?
actually had the same people in my public school.
I
That was
Man,
pretty
I
cool.
thought I was the only one. I wonder who they were. I can't remember. This
Yeah,
was
and
so
they were
long ago.
insanely talented. Like they were beating out guys that were like twice their size, and yeah, that was pretty cool.
I'm gonna look this up. Hold on.
Yeah, midget basketballers. Turn your safe
This
search on.
Oh god. No, I'm not going there.
I'm sorry, that's terrible. While you're
Oh, man.
looking that up, I'm gonna give this film a 6.9, but
God
realistically, it's
damn it.
closer to a 6.5. Yep, sorry, beat you to the punch.
No, I thought it was a good film. I can't knock it. I can't fault it for anything. Yeah, no, I'm gonna give it the same rating. But god damn it, I was gonna say that first.
I mean, hey, the basketball sucks alone makes it
Oh
deserving of
yeah.
a 6. God damn. Yeah, Catwoman went awfully quiet since that movie was introduced. Speaking of introducing better movies, why don't you introduce If Beale Street Could Talk?
Ontario basketball to drop term midget from category classifications. Sorry, I'm just reading an article. I
Yeah,
was
go
just,
ahead. No, go on, go on. Read the article.
oh no. Oh, Dwarf Association.
Yeah,
That's what it is now. The
that's
DAC.
proper term.
Okay,
I apologize.
I think that's probably what it was.
Mhm.
Interesting. Shout out to them. I that was part of my core memory from childhood in basketball.
You guys are pretty cool. If you're still out there, thanks, man. Made my childhood pretty cool. Beale Street time.
All right. So, If Beale Street Could Talk is a 2018 film based off of the book by the much acclaimed God damn, I'm blanking on his name.
James Baldwin.
James Baldwin. I was gonna say Barry Jenkins, but that's the director. But yeah, James Baldwin, who's a writer whose work I still need to explore, but I've heard many quotes and seen interviews with him, and he seems like he was an incredible writer and incredible mind. He always had this kind of morose but deep kind of stare anytime you saw him talk. But man, this is a really interesting film. It takes place in the early '70s in Harlem, um, where this couple, Tish and Fonnie, are in love with each other, and they get pregnant as one does.
As you do,
um,
yeah.
but this of course sets up a not quite a Romeo and Juliet situation, but there was an insane, great tense scene when the families were meeting with each other. One family is a little more well-to-do than the other, but there's some moralistic convictions and some religious convictions that the one mother brings up, where she believes Fonnie could do better than Tish, but also he probably deserves her, which is I don't know, that's a scene that gave me a lot of mixed emotions. But that's just the whole confrontation between the family was just, I was just on the edge of my seat the whole time. The way they talked about the situation. But yeah, Fonny unfortunately gets convicted for a crime he did not commit, um, and that complicates things obviously when you have a pregnant girlfriend um, living in Harlem, and you know the people that um, you are convicted for things wrongly all the time because of cops being expedient. And man, it really brought my blood just seeing how that played out, and just them bullying people out of expedience. And but it also just played out very realistically, very harsh. Like the woman that was actually violated, who called him out, didn't want to relive the experience, and probably singled him out of expediency. Um, and her mother went all the way out of her way to Puerto Rico to track her down, and that was an intense scene of them meeting up. But
Yeah.
yeah, I missed this film when it came out a couple of years ago. I knew it was another one from Barry Jenkins. I did see Moonlight, and I thought Moonlight was great, but this one just it was on my like ongoing list of films that I have to check out, but it didn't pop on my radar immediately. But having seen it now, I really feel like I missed out seeing this in theaters. I thought it was excellent.
Nice. And right
Yeah,
now we are joined
what
by my good friend Daryl Ailes. He's a
what up,
filmmaker.
guys?
He's a producer. He's a dad. How's it going, man?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm glad you guys finally got to sit down and watch this one. Like you said at the beginning, I've kind of been nagging you about this for a while because yeah, for me it was like a no-brainer. Like I went to see Moonlight for the Oscar race the year before, and I just loved it. I loved what Barry Jenkins was doing in terms of like how his visuals stood out and how he could go real deep and dark into a story. And so we were like first in line to see Beale Street when it hit the Highland. And yeah, like I don't know, man. It's as a cinematographer, I gotta just play the bias card right away because this is literally like one of my top five films, and like in a very Deakins way. Like upon rewatching it, I've talked it up for so long, but haven't rewatched it in a few years. But it really stands up. Like it's not like every shot's trying to be overly showy or anything. It's just so properly shot for what the story's trying achieve.
Oh yeah.
Like
Mhm.
it met perfect meeting of visuals to story and bringing a book to life too. Like it definitely feels kind of has like a bit of a play, bit of novel feel. You can always feel that a little bit when it comes to cinema, but it's so natural. Like I
It,
think the actors did a really good job of delivering some of
I,
these dialogue scenes.
I
Like
was
you
gonna
said,
say it felt so authentic. Like you can tell James Baldwin was like a man of that, place and time, and he really was just writing what was like really in the zeitgeist. And unfortunately, in many ways, it still resonates today, for good and for bad. But
oh yeah,
like the writing comes through, and the way Barry Jenkins like took that material and shot it, I thought
oh,
was really poignant, really honed in. I love these like moments where time seems to slow down. I also really love the sound design. Like there was this
oh,
there were sequences where they just bring in this kind of low rumbling when his friend is talking about the things he's seen in prison and how you just don't know like the stuff that I've went through, and you just hear this like low rumble kind of throughout
It's
that. And
horror of the
man,
mind.
dude,
it
that
Really
scene.
gets your
Oh
that
my
imagination running.
god,
Yeah.
it
that.
it just
Oh,
it's really compelling. And I love he has a few close-ups where the characters stare down the barrel of the lens and they just feel so intimate. And
Remind me
yeah.
of
yeah.
Baraka a little
Did you
bit.
find out what that whole system was? Because it's like basically a teleprompter, but it's got a live feed of the other actor, so they're actually able to stare into like in their
Really?
perception into the
Oh
actor's
wow.
eyes.
That's
So that's why
I
they're
crazy.
getting like such deep, longing looks. Because and can I just say the lead actor, he can do things with his eyes that are like so next level acting. It really blows my mind. Like how much he can just get across with a look or something like, and I know that's typical actor 101, but like it was something extra with him. Like there was a whole sex scene that like it didn't feel like a sex scene because of the way he looked at her. Like it was
It's
so
very passionate.
ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, like the guy was so far and like he knew what to focus on as a director. Like I think that's the big thing with this film. Like it
oh
was
yeah.
like oh
Th- th-
so
there were some beautiful, just intimate moments that just felt very natural, real. They didn't feel performative at all. They just felt like this is two real people just connecting on that, human level, and it was beautiful. And
yeah, especially that
and also
scene.
the actress that did Tish was excellent too. Like when she was first breaking the news to her mom, and she just very shyly, just says "mama," like in this very desperate, like little tone, like. She didn't even say what she had to tell her yet, but you knew exactly. Like you tell that
Oh
there was
yeah.
this you could tell that she knew what she was gonna say, like, right away. And man, that's amazing acting.
And
Absolutely.
to touch on one of your points you brought up earlier with the false accusation and whatnot, I think it's a really smart job that the movie does, and this might be in the book too. But I think we checked, it's like almost 40 or 45 minutes into the film before it even does that montage that explains why he's in jail and whatnot. Like they focus on the relationship first, and like they build that with you and like make you fall in love with the characters, then
Yeah.
to tear you down. Like it's so
That's
No,
what
I
makes
just
it
I
work.
I
Is
I
that
love
like
that
they
too, because like, if you put those montages up front and it's like you're setting the scene, it's like either people are completely into this thing or they might just be repelled for some reason. But when you get to know the characters first and really, see their chemistry and really see how much they care for each other, then I think that's like that primes you for em empathizing with the whole situation, even if you weren't there and it didn't affect you. But I think when you fall in love with the characters first and then you are given context for the situation they're in, then you really connect with them more
That's
but
deeply.
what makes it work,
it
is that you're
it
emotionally invested in what's going on before the bad things happen. I feel like a lot of films and TV shows these days make the mistake of having the bad thing happen first to get like something exciting going on for the
yeah.
audience, and then they'll be like, oh, here's the reason why you should care. Here's the traumatic backstory. And the film never, outside of like maybe one scene, it never really goes there. Like it makes sure you're invested in these characters and that they feel like real, genuine people before tugging at your heartstrings, instead of just tugging the heartstrings from the beginning and expecting you to get a reaction. Like I feel like that's something that's missing in like a lot of cinema, a lot of stories lately. Like the message is there, but you're not making me care. And this
Yeah.
film, in every way, shape, or form, makes you care, and that's what's so special about it. And that's why it's a cut above kind of like the typical Oscar race bait drama, which some people say this film is, but I really don't agree with that. I think
No.
it's a cut above.
No. This is way beyond some Oscar bait shit. Like this is one
This
of
is
those
the good
times where you
version
can,
of Just Mercy.
This is the film that deserves, like, I don't know how well it performed at the Oscars, but it deserves that kind of recognition because it is really authentic in what it's trying to say, and it's not made for Oscar season. There's so many films that pop up at the end of the year, and you never even heard about them, and you can tell that they're made to fill up the Oscar ballot, where this felt like it was made to be the story is trying to tell first and foremost,
yeah.
and it didn't care if it got recognition, but it absolutely deserved when it did.
And apparently it was approached that way too. Like I was reading the behind the scenes, and Barry Jenkins wanted to do this story for a while, but he didn't feel confident enough until he made Moonlight. And not that Moonlight is Oscar bait or anything, but he was kind of making Moonlight to kind of show off like what he can do. And that's still a
To
great,
Yeah.
passionate movie, but you can tell like this was a story he was waiting for the right time to tell.
mm,
That's
And
what makes it
budget
stand
too.
out.
Like
Yeah.
it's a period piece, right? And we got to remember that that's the easy thing about Moonlight. And Moonlight was dirt cheap, and compared to a lot of other stuff, it was not a big investment. Like A24 just picked up that shit. Like it was, you know, I in my opinion at least, like they really kind of step up like budget, and like costuming is so amazing.
The set design is
So-
incredible. If there
Oh
is
my
any,
God.
like I don't know if it's one of those movies where I can't tell if it's a real what's real location and what's a set. Like it all just bleeds so seamlessly together. And despite the fact that the film is artistic and very colorful and very like warm and fuzzy, I like how they don't shy away from the grittiness of the setting. I really, really appreciate that aspect about it because I feel like a lot of artsy films kind of go a little overboard in that sense, but this film feels like the perfect balance between like art house and realism
No,
to
this
get its
film's
message
very
across.
tame.
Yeah.
Like honestly, like I waffle about the visuals, but like beyond a few montages that really lean into it, like it's very tame in that regard. Like
mhm. I,
very
I actually
restrained.
I actually think I preferred this film overall to like Moonlight was a great film and it got a lot of like Oscar recognition. I don't think this got quite as much, but I think it is you can tell that Barry Jenkins is really honing in on his abilities here. And I think it made for a story that, well, I guess that I personally resonated more with.
It
Same. No,
it's a tough
100%.
one. Yeah, it's a
No,
I
tough one.
really
it's
like
Yeah.
Moonlight, but this was better than Moonlight in my opinion.
oh yeah.
It's so masterful. Like there's something like he does that Inglorious Bastards thing where you can just run a scene for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and doesn't even feel like the time's passing. You just want to be there. Like you said, like that dinner scene. Man. Like, oh my god, I'm actually upset there's a flashback in between. I'd rather just
Oh
keep me
yeah.
there. You know what
No,
I
no,
mean? I mean,
I love that whole
flashback's
dinner scene
necessary,
where
but
like was it the one where the friend comes over that he that just got out of jail?
well, no. The halfway through the when she's telling them that she's pregnant, and then the
Oh yeah,
dad
yeah.
is like, "Oh, I want to tell the like Fonzie's dad or Fonny's dad."
Right, yeah.
Aussie
Yeah.
Gary's
So,
dead.
oh, dude, that friggin'
I,
conversation, like from
I,
start to finish. Oh,
So intense.
there were so many intense conversation scenes, and there's that one, like you were saying, but also when his one friend just gets out of jail or just tells him that he got out
yeah,
of jail, and he tells him about what he kind of experienced. Also, that actor reminds me of the main character in Uptight, which is a film I'm not going to shut up about
This
because
is
it's not.
Brian Tree Henry's character, right? Or am I getting
yeah.
mixed up? Yeah. Oh my.
I, I
I've
think
only
so,
seen
but
him in crappy comedies, so it was refreshing to see a really good, like, serious
oh man,
performance out of him for once.
I don't think I've seen him in anything before, but I thought he was excellent for the few scenes he was
Uh,
in.
like Bullet Train.
Bullet Train, Godzilla
Oh,
versus
dude.
Kong, Frying
I'm trying to
Okay.
Burrito.
think. There's another one that's obvious. I'm totally forgetting. But yeah, no. Oh, he's in Atlanta, right?
Yeah, he always just kind of plays like the standard comic relief. I don't know why he's like in Atlanta, but in the other movies I've seen, and
Oh, I thought he was excellent in this.
yeah, he
But
was
dude, he is next
fantastic in
level.
this. Yeah, like
Oh
he's
my god.
fantastic. Pedro Pascal was awesome in this. Like I
Oh
know
yeah.
Steven in our group has been harking him on as like this hack actor that always gets these lazy roles,
This
but I think this movie proves that this guy's like
this
got
actor.
some chops if you get the right director. It kind of made me
Yeah.
more excited for the Last of Us series. Just watch him in this.
No, I thought he was great. Like I think
Dave
everybody.
Franco too. Like Dave Franco,
This
like
is the
didn't do
only
much,
good
but
performance I've seen
Oh
Dave
yeah,
Franco
he's
give.
he's just so restrained. It's
I
like
know.
it's like not a Dave Franco I've ever seen
It's
before. Like he's
weird.
just
It's like he's trying.
Dave Franco's the token white good Jew character.
Yeah,
But I
but
mean, there's also like the lawyer and stuff. Like I feel like the movie does go out of its way a bit to be like, it is fuck the man, but not all white people. Like like
I do
it does
appreciate that
have that
aspect.
vibe.
Yeah,
But no, I'm just saying
Well,
like I think
no,
in
I
pandering
I like
stuff that can really
I
weigh it down when they
I
kind of
I I
just make
like
it
I like
weird.
how it showed the pressures that they were in as well, because like the lawyer, he may not have cared
Yeah,
so much about the case at first, but when he really got in the weeds of it and he was really trying to give him a fair thing, he was suddenly getting pressures from the older white people that, is part of his, firm or
yeah,
whatnot. And it just shows how just unfair that whole situation is when you're trying to do your job, you're trying to, do justice by these people that deserve that absolutely are deserving of it. But, you're kind of bullied out of it as well. And it just sucks for everybody involved, really.
yeah.
honestly, and movies just does a crystal clear job of like exposing that very thing.
Oh,
It
yeah.
very much reminds me of Uptight in that sense, where it doesn't take a simple, narrow-minded approach on the issue. It just fully
It's
explores and delves into every side of that issue and how just everybody
it's
is
very
screwed over at
nuanced
the
and
end.
clear-headed, and it's great to
Absolutely.
see that.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of films that kinda retroactively look at these period pieces and give them these very, like, rose-tinted glasses kind of look. This just feels like a very clear kinda look into the past and how parts of that are still relevant today, unfortunately. But it's just very, very sober and very clear-minded about it, and it's refreshing.
Yeah, very beautiful. I can't believe we haven't talked about this yet. We haven't talked about the music, which is easily
Yeah,
like the
The
best
music was excellent in
part
this.
about this
music.
movie.
Oh,
And it's just, and also they're both have different styles of music, and that's reflected in the soundtrack. Like that is like one of my favorite tropes in movies is when like there's different instruments that reflect the different characters and their views and mindsets, and they just gel it together. There's a track called "A Gape" in particular, like that montage sequence blew me away with that soundtrack. Just the soft piano and the faint glimmers of like the jazz instruments, reminding like the remind us of like the hope that they'll be connected again. It is this movie is love, man. Like I don't know how else to put it. It's I've never seen love represented so well for
Yeah.
visuals and audio since a
This
Wong
this
Kar
is
Wai film. Honestly,
this is the movie
honestly,
that
it feels
answers
like
the
Wong Kar
age.
Wai.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little
this is the
bit,
movie
yeah.
that answers the age-old question. What is love? This is
It,
it. This is love. This
this
is it.
yeah,
That's
this is love.
it.
Like there are so many scenes where it's just like I had to stop watching, not necessarily because it's a sad scene, but because it reminded me of the connections I wish I could share. It's
What
just
what did you guys think of the ending?
ooh, fantastic. It's I love the message in that scene. I think what it's clearly telling us with like all the different families bonding together, not just the families we've grown attached to for the main characters. And I think that's trying to express us and tell us that even in the ugliest, darkest situations, we need to hold on to love and the families that we bond together. Like the world is an ugly, horrible place, but even for 10 minutes, if you have someone to care for, it can be okay. It won't be so bad. That's what I
Yeah,
enjoy.
I mean, even though he's still kind of in jail, I guess
Mhm.
I guess he applied for parole or I'm not sure
Yeah,
exactly,
he was
but
dealt
it
a
was
bad
just
hand, but
Well, yeah, good behavior does a lot in those situations too. It's the baby driver ending. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
you have to do a lot on your end, and like I feel like every goddamn rom-com has the happiest ending. It's every single genre. Like if we are talking about this as a romance film, which I really do think it is, because that's what love is at the end of the day, right? It's not just reserved for rom-coms. Like I think this drops the com and like it really embraces
gets
what
to
like
the
a
heart.
good
Yeah.
romantic
No,
story can be. And yeah, I don't know, man. Like to me, I don't think every romance needs a happy ending.
Nope.
mhm.
And this one definitely, like, me and Jamar were just gutted leaving the theater. It's probably why it took us so long to rewatch it. But it's
Oh yeah.
yeah, it needs to happen sometimes,
It's
right?
a
Like
bittersweet
promising young woman.
ending. It's bittersweet, but it feels very real. And this is what I
Yeah,
was speculating with the last film that we were talking about. is that I wondered if it had a more of an ending akin to La La Land. I'm not going to spoil that film if you haven't seen it, but I do recommend Love and Basketball. It's a certified hood classic. But I do wonder if it might have benefited from a slightly more bittersweet ending than what it had. But anyway, um, yeah, I really love this film. I feel bad that I missed out on it when it came out.
Me too.
Oh, it was so good in theaters, man, on the big
I'm
screen.
I,
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna hit a high bar off the bat. Uh, I'm gonna give it a 9.6.
I'm
hells yeah,
giving it a
dude.
9 out of 10. I was going to give it an 8.5. I will say the structure of the movie I wasn't the biggest fan of. Like you said, Daryl, there were a few scenes that took me out of the experience because they shoved in a flashback at what, in my opinion, was an inappropriate time. But man, yeah, it's a 9 for sure. Like it's closer to an 8.5, but my heart says a 9, and that's all I'm listening to tonight. So
Just you gotta
9 out of
trust
10.
Like,
love all the way, as the
Exactly.
right?
tagline
And I
says.
feel like there is, like, when you it's sometimes the downside to that kind of masterful, like, all in mentality that we talked about that this film's approach has, right? Because what held it back when we did our review for Beale Street back in the day was its rewatchability. Like, it was basically a perfect score, and then rewatchability brought it down. So, like, I'm gonna do the same thing, and I'm gonna give it the 9.5. Cause yeah, dude, that is a it's rare to see a film just do it, and like especially on a rewatch, like some of those dialogue lines, like it got me like giddy, and it was horrible things they were saying, but like giddy with how perfect it was being
How well
portrayed.
it
I
was
don't know.
Oh yeah,
executed. Yeah.
and
Yeah,
it just felt so damn real too.
yeah,
Hmm.
That first confrontation between the two families, they said some things that
Like
damn.
my parents have been through similar arguments, and like I said
yeah.
before, like I'm not from a black family, but I think any kind of family that's had family troubles can definitely relate to the family issues that are presented in this film because it
Well,
is just so
the
grounded.
I think the part that I could relate to is dealing with someone who's very convicted in their Christian beliefs and just
Yeah,
how that very much rubs the wrong way in many situations.
it's
When
crazy
it's
how much was so prevalent about this film. Like, I mean,
yeah,
for a story written so long ago in terms of the race
and
stuff, like the Christianity angle, like it has definitely aged in aspects, but like it's crazy how much is still like the reason we could speed through the montage of all the like the jailing stuff was because we know that story all too well in this day and age.
yeah.
So,
It
yeah,
really makes me want to read more into James Baldwin's work. Like I haven't read any of his novels, but he's an excellent writer as far as I can tell. And any like interviews that I've seen of him and like snippets of his writing that I have read has been brilliant. And yeah, he's such an incredible voice that I'm glad was well documented because it was such a loss when he passed away. But and I really want to read more into his work after seeing this, and I'm really happy to see that it adapted so well in this medium.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Thank you for hopping on to discuss if Beale Streets could talk, Daryl.
yeah. Back to moving stuff around. Take
Wish
it
you
Yeah,
easy,
luck,
boys.
and
buddy.
congrats on the move-in, by
Yeah,
the way.
Oh, thanks,
congratulations,
man.
man.
The office is looking great. The got tons more space. It's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Okay, take her easy, boys.
Happy for you, man.
Uh,
Peace.
Have a good night.
And speaking of learning to be happy for people, we have one last film tonight. That
Oh
is
boy,
2022's 2022. Yeah, I said that right. The
2022.
Inspection. Inspired by the true events of director and writer Elegance Bratton, who apparently similarly was disowned by his mother for being gay and went to find a home in the Marines in a desperate attempt to find himself and learn to kind of accept his homosexuality while also dealing with an environment that is very much against that. Um,
Yeah, I
it,
guess I was kind of saying earlier that 2 out of 3 stories would be like love stories, although I think this still applies. It's not a conventional love story. I guess you could say it's more of a self-love and self-actualization
yeah,
story.
stuck away from the norm.
When yeah, because yeah, the story opens up where Elegance is homeless basically. He's just a gay man out in the streets, kind of trying to make something of his life after he's been disowned by his mom, who is very much, against his lifestyle and his orientation. And it was really heartbreaking, kind of seeing him trying to reconnect with her, and she just is. all but like disowning him, putting like newspaper down on her messy ass couch to sit on the one spot that's
Yeah,
available.
my mom was literally saying like your apartment's a shithole, man. Like who gives a
Oh
shit?
God. I mean, and she's just a small-minded woman in a small box of an apartment, and it's
Literally.
just
Yeah.
unfortunate. Just, I mean, I was, I was going for a visual theme with the poster where there's like these two people kind of connecting, and if you look at the poster, the inspection, you might at a glance think that it's like, um, you might think that they're a couple, but that is not the situation at all.
Jesus, no.
Do they even look kind of close in age, which is like,
From that
so
angle, I guess. Yeah.
maybe it was a little manipulative with the poster choice that I made, but I was going for something that fit the theme,
Shock the
and it's just
audience.
like
Yeah.
could not be more it could the situation that you see in the poster could not be y- more opposite as to what you would think from the other
Okay.
two. It's just God damn. So yeah, this was I just finished watching this film, so my thoughts are very rough off the bat. And even though I'm not gay, there was a lot of things in this that I felt I could connect to, just people not understanding you or disliking you for who you are. And also the bullying really got to me, especially when he signed up for the military to try to make something of his life because his mom, has disowned him, and he faces a lot of prejudice even there. And this is like 2005, so this is still very much a problem at the time still. I mean, it's not like they could turn away people for being gay exactly, but they still harassed the hell out of him unfairly. And the way that he fought through that, and the way he connected with other people who were bullied for different reasons. Like there was one person who was Arabic, and there was a scene where the one like recruiter put him up against the barrel to say this is what your enemy looks like. And then the one person, protested saying, I refuse to train because this is not what I signed up for. Like I don't intend to shoot, this person. And
Yeah, he's a Marine.
or even pretend to. Like man, there were so many moments like this. Spoilers by the way. But this film was not the easiest to access. It's not on any like streaming platform that I'm already subscribed to. Well, I watched it through Amazon Prime, rented it for $5, but it is well worth the money. Really, we should be paying patronage to these films more than we should. I don't think this one's getting a lot of attention
It's really
as of
not.
yet.
Yeah.
But well, I mean, it is getting Oscar attention, but I don't hear much buzz about it outside of that.
It
Otherwise,
didn't get
I
nominated for
thought,
anything, I don't think.
oh, really?
I could
That's
be
a shame.
wrong. Let me double check
I,
real
I I think
quick.
I think it did. Well, I think it deserves a lot more recognition than what it's getting because I do think it's a fantastic film.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it was nominated for a Golden Globe. It was not nominated for an Oscar. Was not.
Yeah. I mean, the
Yeah.
Oscar snubs are always a lot more interesting to me than the ones that are nominated.
Oh,
Although
absolutely. Yeah,
I
like I
I
was
I, I
livid when
am
Pearl didn't get nominated for anything. I was so
I
mad.
am pulling for everything everywhere, but
Yeah, fingers crossed. That movie
yeah.
wins. I mean, that's probably why this didn't get
I
nominated for
I
anything
I
because
also have to
A24
say
was pushing that so hard.
I also have to say I vividly disagree with Quentin Tarantino. I was watching an interview with him from Tom Segura, like on his podcast, and he was saying that movies like suck now, or that the pendulum hasn't swung back yet. I think Everything Everywhere at Once and movies like this are, showing a kind of movement back where movies are quote good again. It's like
Hmm.
the '90s part two or whatever,
Yeah, I know.
or the
Like,
'70s part three.
yeah, like I think every era is gonna have its bad movies. It's gonna have its
Oh yeah,
Hollywood recycled trait, but there's always gonna be good films to push through, even if, admittedly, the large majority can seem like it's against that sometimes. There are good films that push through, and we kind of need to keep vying for that because they'll encourage people to make more good cinema. Otherwise, if you just tell them that everything sucks now, nobody's gonna want to do anything, create
yeah.
anything.
So yeah, Elegance, or I forget what his fictional character name is in this, but yeah, he signs for the military. He makes friends with some people. There's this one recruiter who's, I guess, bi because he has a wife, but um some of the fantasy scenes in this kind of made me laugh, I have to say. Just
Yeah, those were like the neon lighting was just like, come
they
on.
they they stuck out to me a little bit, but I just found them funny.
Yeah,
which
they're
probably wasn't
entertained at
the
least, I guess. Yeah,
which probably wasn't the intention, but
got some
it's
enjoyment out of it. Yeah,
it's like he's in the shower and then suddenly everything becomes a blue, and
a
then
rave.
it becomes like blue and pink, and then he's asked for having a heart on, which that just happens sometimes. It doesn't mean that
Yeah,
you know
maybe I was thinking about my wife at home. You don't know, like,
yeah,
come
but
on, man.
like the thing that really unnerved me though is just him getting bullied for being different, or just being himself and being punished for being who he is, and that sucked. It sucks to see that.
Yeah, I really
But
wasn't a big fan of this movie. I'll be
oh,
honest.
you
It
weren't.
really. I'm not gonna say I don't appreciate it. It's like all of the actors did a great job. Jeremy Pope in particular is really good, and I
Oh,
don't think I've
I
seen him in
I I
anything
I
before.
thought he did an excellent film. Like,
Oh, yeah.
this isn't a film that's about us or made for us.
No, that's true too.
But I think there was a lot of but there no, there's a lot of grounded human elements that I could relate to besides that, and I thought it was excellent at that. It's not a film I would necessarily go out of my way to see, but
Mhm.
and it doesn't connect to me super personally, but I thought it was excellently done, and there was a lot of great elements in it, and I would recommend it to people.
Yeah, like I wouldn't take that away from it. Like from what I've been hearing about the creation process, it feels like this film was kind of made as therapy for Elegance Bratton to
Yeah,
come to terms with what he's
and
been through.
and I think for that, I appreciate when people can channel what they've experienced into the cinematic medium and use it as a way to tell their story and to, channel that out, right?
Yeah,
And I and
absolutely.
I and I and I think that this film is an absolute success in that regard.
Yeah, and I just want to preface by saying that it doesn't really matter what I think of this movie because Elegance made this movie for him. You know, for better or for worse, this
Mm.
is definitely his movie, and if he
He he
likes it, that's all that matters for a
he
project
made
like
this for
this.
him, but he also made it for people that can relate to this.
That too.
And yeah, and I do think that it was really well done in that way.
Yeah,
Again, I literally just watched it, so there's probably a lot of details I'm forgetting, but
that's
I would
fair.
recommend it. It really flew kind of under the radar, unfortunately. But whenever it hops up on streaming, I would recommend it. Hell, spend $5 and rent it if you want.
Or
That's what I
spend a
did.
dollar renting it on Apple.
Oh,
Womp
yeah,
womp.
just rub
Yeah,
that in. Why not?
like, but for me personally, and keep in mind, this is just my personal opinion. I'm a straight white guy. I haven't been to the Marines. I haven't dealt with these kind of issues before. I just didn't connect with. I think the worst issue I had with me personally is that I wasn't emotionally invested in anything. Everything just felt
Mm.
very one dimensional and flat. Like the characters had issues with their sexuality or their race, but they didn't really go far beyond that. It felt like the only thing these characters had to offer was their sexuality and their race. And I personally do think it is a little hypocritical for a film to say that, diversity should be accepted. And I wholeheartedly agree. It should be accepted. But if you're going to make a Muslim character that sole purpose is that he's a Muslim character and he's bullied for being a Muslim, I feel like that's doing a disservice. I feel like that goes against your message to not properly flesh out these characters
I
with
mean,
the time you've
it,
given them.
I think it shows that they were both being ostracized for being who they are,
Hey,
and
absolutely, but that's my problem is like with if Beale Street could talk, what made that film so effective was that it felt like they were real people. Like they had their own flaws, they had their own beliefs that went beyond just the color of their skin or the color of their sexuality. They had layers to them. I could feel so much more for them because of that. But this film, everything just felt so flat and one dimensional, and there were scenes that were clearly like trying to get me to care, and the actors are doing their absolute best, but I just couldn't get invested because I couldn't see beyond the facets of the roles in the story, and they
mm,
shouldn't feel like roles in the story to me.
I mean, maybe there was a lot more to it that I related to that I thought I would, and a lot of it had to do with just people being bullied or manipulated in unfair ways,
Hmm.
and that stuff did really get to me, and I felt like I could relate to a lot of that because I've been in those situations and I didn't know how to stand up for myself or call it out when I needed to, or a lot of times I just had to deal with it and kind of move on in as best way as I could. And all those things just kind of come up when you're at boot camp, I guess. I've never been, but I've been in situations where, people, bully or ostracize you for arbitrary reasons. And I really wanted to punch that guy's face in.
Well,
Like
I
I
mean,
think
they
I
did their job.
physically
Yeah.
I think I physically swung my fist toward the screen. I didn't hit it, but like it was like when they were all in line and he got pushed out of like line and
Oh, yeah, that was
I was just
bad.
like it's just like I wanted to hit the guy's head against the wall just for
Oh,
being a
yeah,
little
it's
shit. But
very cathartic. Yeah,
I
that's
scared
fair.
the cat doing that, but
That's fair. But yeah, like even his character just felt like he was kind of just a one-dimensional douchebag, and like obviously, if you felt different things for the story, that's absolutely wonderful. But it just I couldn't shake the feeling that a story like this. I'm wondering if maybe Elegance should have done what Barry Jenkins did with Beale Street, and just like waited a bit to tell it. Like maybe wait until he had more experience with filmmaking and writing and getting
I
to know
mean,
more people until like this feels like I can't really be mad at it because it very much feels like a first film. Like it has a lot of first film problems.
is it
I
his
guess is the
first
best way
film?
to put it. I believe it's his first feature film. I think he made short films and stuff for television before
Okay.
this, but if I'm not yeah, this is his directorial debut supposedly.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if maybe he should have waited a little bit to jump into it. But that's easy for me to say. Again,
I mean,
given what
maybe. I
this
mean,
man went
I
through.
think this film could like, get him on the radar and tell other kind of stories like it. Or
Yeah,
I would hope that he doesn't get pigeonholed. I don't know what his creative goals or ambitions are. I mean, the guy is 43. This happened to him when in around 2005. And so he did wait quite a bit to meditate on what happened to him before telling the story.
that's a
And I
fair point.
guess
It wouldn't be hard.
and if what happens to the character in the movie correlates to what happened to him in real life, and he kind of went on to be a like a war photographer, I'm very curious what things he might have seen there, and maybe he might bring that kind of story to life. I don't know. Um, I have to do more research on it, but I did think that it was a really well done, like first feature film, and I am very curious to see what he would do next. I wonder how he would do for a like a non-personal story, like an
Hmm.
adapted work, or I'm just curious what else he might have in store.
Yeah, like I'm
Because
interested to see where he goes next for sure.
yeah, I
Especially like
thought he was
his
very
yeah.
good at kind of creating that sense of that feeling of injustice without make it feeling like this was made to be Oscar bait or made to be like a film that's just tr- you know showing off a minority problem. I feel like it was deeper and more human than that. It's
I
just about
I
I do.
yeah no,
Yeah.
I believe you. Don't get me wrong, I do. It's just I kind of felt it was Oscar baity and it doesn't really go beyond its issues. Like I feel like this film is missing a first act. Like I'm not necessarily saying the film should have been longer, but I feel like there should have been more meat to its potatoes. I feel like I need to learn more about these relationships the characters are going through and what they mean to them before insisting that I should care about them. Like the mother and the son, like I feel like it shouldn't have necessarily started with her disowning him, but maybe disowning him over time, like maybe it would have felt a lot more. But the fact that it just kind of started out
Yeah.
with
I
them
mean,
and it never really
it,
goes much
it,
further
it,
than that,
it
I
starts
don't know.
off with him living in the homeless shelter and trying to visit home to get his birth certificate, and you see the tension. You don't really get a lot of details as to what their backstory was growing up. Maybe it could have done something there. I mean, it was a
Yeah, that's
actually
just it.
kind of a short film. It was only like for
It's
for,
only
for
90
films these days.
minutes.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, like an hour 34 minutes. So I did appreciate that it wasn't overly over long. But I do wonder if more backstory might have benefited a little bit.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I still think it worked in spite of that.
Yeah, fair enough. But it's very much an experience. I feel like it just, the potatoes are there. We just need some meat and some nice zest
Yeah.
and some nice
But
garlic, and it just wasn't there.
Ian, what if it was a vegan dish?
Oh, well, I mean, that's just awful. I mean, if we're
What,
talking
you're
about
not
vegan
vegan?
food, oh, well,
What's Ian? What's wrong with being vegan? Do you have something against veganism?
well, I mean, no, nothing against veganism, besides the fact that you're a horrible, terrible. No, I'm kidding. I obviously don't care about veganism. It's just I've tried something similar before, and let's just say it's lasted the span of a few hours before I just go back to being a carnivore. So just not
Okay.
something I can sink my teeth into. Got him. Yeah, like in terms of positives, like yeah, like I said, the acting is very good all around. Like Jeremy Pope does a fantastic job, and there's several scenes where like he
Vegaphobe.
can cry without like blinking, and that's a very impressive skill to have. Because something like a lot of actors do, even like famous actors, like they really have to blink constantly in order to like get their eyes running and start crying, and it's really a special skill to appreciate when they can just do that by staring
Hmm.
without blinking a single time. That is
There
very
there
impressive to
was
pull off.
this is completely out of pocket, but there was one scene that really stuck out to me when he's like um I guess on inspection duty. He has to like walk around while everyone's sleeping, and they all have their red flashlights, and the one character just got like a holy Bible sent to him with clippings of like pornography
Yeah,
shoveled
sorry.
through, and everyone's in their barracks whacking off. It's like, when does that happen?
Yeah, that would not be allowed. I'm pretty sure he could just be like, hey, yeah, there are a few segments where
Just
I'm just like,
just
is
just
that
go to the bathroom like everyone else.
yeah, go to the bathroom like everyone else, and also like you could call that out. You could be like, hey, they're masturbating. They're not supposed to be fucking
Would you
doing
do
that.
that though? I wouldn't do that. I
I,
mean,
I mean, I do it. I do it on the dickhead. I do it on him
I
big time.
I wouldn't. It'd be just too awkward.
Yeah, that's fair.
But
But there are a few moments where I'm just like, is that allowed? Like, I don't know. Like, there's a scene where they're shooting targets, and there are people right next to the targets holding up the targets. I'm like,
oh
that
no,
cannot.
they're below on a hill, and
Yeah,
that's the whole thing.
I still feel
But
like
but but
that.
the one guy was, like, manipulating, like, the shots to make it look like he was a worse shot,
Yeah.
and I didn't like that they cut out, like, the scene of like, I felt like there was gonna be a whole scene where he gets to prove himself and shoot the shots
Yeah.
for real and get them,
What
and
happened
it just
there?
seems like it just felt like that scene was just cut out and it was missing. I'm like, "Where was that scene?"
That yeah,
That
stuff
that
like
felt
that feel
that
like
felt like
first
that
time
was gonna be a
films.
big moment where he could have proved himself for everyone to see without some dickhead fucking with his, store.
Yeah,
Like,
that would have
I
made it
it
so
just
much more
felt it just felt
satisfying.
like
Yeah.
it just felt like that scene was just missing, period. And, like, at the very end, I liked at the very end, it's like his mom sees him and he's proud of him for graduating, but she assumes that, she'll be the person that she wants him to be and not who he is, and suddenly the sergeant is standing up for him. But, like, I felt like that scene would've been better informed if he saw with his own eyes that he's a really good shot, and it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
that he's gay or
You'd feel
anything.
so much more from that. You'd
But,
feel
like,
like a
it just
tangible connection.
it felt like a scene was missing. Like
Absolutely. I don't know if
like
something
that
happened,
like
maybe,
that
like
should have
yeah.
like, I don't know if it got cut out, but it felt like that should have paid off. Like, you should have seen there should have been a scene where he proved himself that he was a good shot and that the, team leader was fucking with him. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know where I don't know what happened to that
Yeah, I don't
scene.
know if an actor couldn't show up to set someday or they ran out of time or
No, it just felt like they cut it out
yeah,
for
you mean like
like,
they
the producer
filmed it
cut
and
it
they
out.
just cut it out?
I don't know, it just felt like there was clearly gonna be a payoff for that scene, but they just cut away from
Yeah,
it, and I'm
nothing
like,
happened. Yeah,
"Weird, okay."
that was weird. Like there's a lot of moments like that where it's just like you're insisting that I should care, and I really want to, but because I'm trying to care, it's just not working. Like there's so many scenes
Well,
like that with the Marines going like "hoorah, hoorah" to like cheer him on. And it's just like you don't
well
feel like characters to me. I can't
It's
get
it's it's it's
invested in
not
this.
that you wouldn't care, it's that maybe just some moments didn't feel earned. I'm like,
Oh, a lot of
wait,
moments didn't feel earned.
it's like, wait, suddenly they're all on his side now? I've seen them mostly bully him up until now. So I
Yeah,
figured there must have been there had to have been some scene where he further earns their respect besides despite all the, bullies and the assholes that he's been dealing with up to this point to really make him feel more vindicated there. But, I don't know. I feel like there was some stuff maybe left on the cutting room floor that could have informed that was just cut out for one reason or another. I'm curious. But overall, for, like, the first feature, I think it was really well done, and it was, like, a personal story. This was probably something that has been itching at him for a while that he probably felt he really needed to tell, and good for him.
mhm.
Um, this did not do well, in terms of, financial success,
The marketing
unfortunately.
was awful. Like there was
Uh,
barely
what
any.
what marketing? It's
Exactly.
like
Welcome to A24, where films either get mismarketed or no marketing whatsoever.
yeah. So the budget for this was 3 million, which is a pretty modest like budget for films like this.
Yeah.
But its box office was only 385,000. That's like damn,
Oh, that kind of
not not
sucks. Yeah.
not even close. Like I do think that this film deserves a lot more recognition and eyes on it, and
Yeah.
because
Hopefully it does better in like rental sales or DVD sales.
yeah, because I think it's a decent movie.
Yeah.
I just didn't think it was handled very well, unfortunately.
Well,
So I really hope that it starts to make its money back. I don't know how they're gonna make up for it, but it's
yeah.
unfortunate that
We'll see.
this movie kind of got looked over. But I really hope it doesn't discourage him from making more films.
Yeah, like
I
despite the
hope that.
issues I had with it, like I can tell like this came from a genuine place. Like it's not cynical or spiteful or mean spirited. It comes from a good place, and I can respect it for
Mhm.
that. But
It's a very personal, very kind of singular film
mhm.
for him, but I do think it was worthwhile for him to have made it and to get the recognition. I do think the the fact that they're highlighting like his mom being like quote proud of him with hands on his face is a bit manipulative because that's
That's not how that scene goes. Yeah.
it gets undercut really quick, which is unfortunate. But damn, yeah, the critic consensus on this, I'm just going to read it out loud. Although it's frustratingly clumsy in certain respects, the inspection is an affecting actor's showcase in service of some truly worthy themes. I think I would agree with that. There are definitely some first time filmmaker isms that you know were, were a little rough, but I do think the heart of the story is there, and anyone that wants to see this film, I think should. Uh, for
What'd you
my
rate it?
money, though, uh, I think I'll give it a 6.9.
Nice. I'm giving this a 5 out of 10. I really wanted to like it more. I
Ooh,
was actually really excited to talk about it for the podcast, but
just impaling yourself on that fence today, aren't you?
yeah, just wasn't really connecting with me.
Damn.
Like I was just watching it, which is so the worst thing I could say about the movie is that it just got
I
nothing
did
out of me.
hear Bernard groaning at you right already. I don't think
Oh,
he's even
I'd
seen this
mention
film, but
he's probably groaning at us for giving Love and Basketball 6.9s only. Like
oh
it's
yeah.
just like, come on, higher ratings for those movies.
Actually, I think we're gonna update that one to 7.5. I do think that was a better realized film, maybe overall.
Fair enough.
Um,
I'll change that then.
in terms of feature debuts.
Fair enough. So thank you guys so much for listening. If you're watching us with your special someone, or if you're watching us to celebrate Black History Month, we thank you either way for hopping on to the channel. What is coming up? Like, do
Oh
we
yeah,
have an episode later this month?
yes we do. Steven will be joining us again. Our favorite sorry, not I almost said communist.
Capitalist Swine.
Our favorite capitalist swine
Yay.
from Little Rock, Arkansas, or Hot Springs. I forget which place in Arkansas he's in. One of those made up places. Anyway, um, we made jokes at his expense because he made jokes at our expense. It's all in good fun. Um, but he's joining us next week for a trilogy that I kind of put out a version of this trilogy before, and then he kind of wrestled back and forth with it. It was his birthday earlier this month on Groundhog Day. I think he's still living that same day till this day. But in order to celebrate, in order to get him out of the Groundhog Day loop, we are going to be looking at films that uh, are not literally me. Taking the whole literally me theme and looking at more cautionary tales of films of people that deal with very tough emotional situations. Um, this is basically the very rough side of love and the places and the sort of more negative spaces that can lead you to, unfortunately. And if I remember correctly, we will be looking at Vincent Gallo's Buffalo '66,
Mhm.
which is a film we've been itching to talk about for some time. Um, and Mike Leigh's Naked, I believe, was the other film. The third one is escaping me at the moment, but these are films that are about cautionary tales in terms of love relationships. Maybe characters you don't want to emulate um, when opening up to other people.
Yeah, we'll ask Steven for an update on that.
It
But
I know he posted it somewhere. Just give me a sec. I'm gonna pretend that I knew what it was going in.
yeah, that's
Um,
fair. That's fair.
Give
Well,
me a sec. It's I'm sure it's in the pinned messages.
yeah, no
Oh,
worries.
sorry. Um, Bertolo Il Conformista or The Conformist from 1970, which is a film he's been pushing for a while, so we'll see what that's about. So The Conformist from 1970, Naked from 1993, and Buffalo 66 from 1996.
I'm so excited to watch The Conformist.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Italian cinema fan, so I'm definitely
Oh
excited for
yeah.
that one.
I think I had a different name. I had a similar trilogy idea called Fragile Egos, which
Ah, that's right.
yeah, which included Buffalo 66 and I think a couple other films that looked at people that yeah, had fragile egos, I guess. But we're salvaging it in this case. And I've been wanting to talk about Naked for quite some time. That's a film I stumbled across in a Salvation Army of all places, found it on VHS, and
I don't know.
man,
Feel about that. Yeah.
that was a discovery to make.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say for now.
Well,
Boy, we're gonna get really personal, I think, in the next episode.
I can't wait. Until then, guys, stay tuned for Conan. And is it Thursday yet? Have a good night, guys. See you.